So today we're going to talk about the meaning of self-realization, and can also be referred to as cosmic consciousness. And Paramahansa Yogananda has a quote: "Self-realization is the knowing in all parts of your being that you are now in possession of the kingdom of God." Okay, where do we sign up? That sounds like... when I was meditating on this topic, what hit me was there's self-discovery and there's self-realization, and there's really a difference in my mind anyway, and we'll see if you all agree. The process of self-discovery is something that everyone that's born into a body goes through. I mean, it's everything that is born into a body goes through. We learn how to exist in these bodies. We have these senses that we have to get used to, which takes some time, as when you observe a young baby going through its changes and learning about hot and cold and pain and different things that happen when you're learning about your senses. And then slowly but surely, for humans, the words begin to form, and we discover how to communicate, and without crying. And then we are whisked off into schools, usually, and we begin this indoctrination of planning for the future, learning and planning. And a lot of times that future is laid out in a way of, you get an education, you get a job, you find a spouse, a partner, have a family, and that's life, you know. And it's all a process of self-discovery. You're discovering these things about yourself and how you relate to the world around you. But what happens in a lot of cases is that when somebody has gone through that process and have reached the body's beginning to pass on, a lot of times there's this real soul reflection of, was it all really worth it? I mean, what did I really achieve in this life? Yes, I have a wonderful family and they're well taken care of, but who am I? Why am I here, and where am I going? And it's very scary for a lot of people at that point in their lives. So in my mind, that's self-discovery. And self-realization is really different. And it's really, when you think about the Divine Spirit and the incredible story that is unfolding through the images that Spirit is projecting into this realm. And the real underlying plot of the story is, for us humans, God wants us to discover self-realization, wants us to embrace the cosmic energy that surrounds us and is within us, and recognize it and live with it every day and feel God's pulsating heart in us with every breath. And that's the grand plot of this creation and what Divine Spirit has written for us all to be able to achieve. But it's a lot easier said than done. There are so many distractions that can throw us off that task. One thing that really helps is if you can read or view or listen to inspiring information, talks by souls that have achieved self-realization. When Norm Paulson, the founder of Sunburst, when he had left Yogananda's and had his cosmic conscious experience at a very young age, nobody wanted to hear about it. You know, he wasn't at SRF anymore, and he was doing construction, and he was really lonely because he couldn't communicate with anybody about his experience or how he felt about spirit. So his favorite book, actually like his Bible, was this book published around 1900, and it's called Cosmic Consciousness, and it's by Maurice Bucke. And this guy took on this incredible task of trying to identify self-realization in souls that have happened in the past and souls that he has actually been in contact with in his life. And he goes back and he sees a similar trend that happens in each soul in their journey to self-realization. And he writes about Buddha and Jesus and Paul and Walt Whitman. These are all souls that achieved self-realization. And then he has a lot of other, sometimes they're just initials in the book, you know, JK or JC or, you know, whoever they didn't want to be named. And he goes through their story. And in some cases, the self-realization happens just by divine intervention. It just kind of happens in somebody. It's just like the karmic clock was clicking into that mode where it was time for them to achieve that. But a lot of them actually, you know, had to work at it a little bit. Even Jesus, who was very in tune with spirit from a very young age, it's written that he left when he was about 13 and went to India and studied there till he was in his late 20s, early 30s, and then he came back. There's actually records in different monasteries in India about him being there. And when you read Walt Whitman, who was Norm's favorite poet, you read his earlier works, and then all of a sudden there's a change in how he writes the later works. And that's the point where he achieved self-realization. And what he found out when he was writing this book was that by 1900, the rates of souls achieving self-consciousness was increasing. And it was 5 times more frequent than it was 1,000 years previous to 1900. So that's the good news. It's accelerating. And a lot of it has to do with the yugas, the flow of the yugas, which we get into in classes here, and you can read about them. But it's the change of consciousness that just naturally happens on the planet every 24, 25, 26,000 years. So each of us, we're on our own very, very unique journey for self-realization. And when we read in Norm's autobiography, he talks about how when he was born, he was already very conscious of divine spirit and the energy that was flowing within him and around him. And he had this desire, pretty much as soon as he could put it into words, was to find God. And one day he was out in the yard with his grandmother. I think he was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something like that. And he said, "Grandma, has anyone ever seen God?" And she thought for a minute and said, "Well, yes, Moses has seen God." And that was it. That just lit up Norm and just said, okay, it's possible, you know. I can find God. And it ignited this fire in him to begin his journey. And when we look at the kind of the lineage of Sunburst, how from the early, very, very beginnings up until today, we recognize souls like Moses who, climbed that mountain and saw the burning bush. Jesus and his journey to India and back. And then in later times, there's Lahiri, who was this wonderful gentleman who was so in love with God and ended up climbing a mountain like Moses and meeting Babaji and receiving Kriya, which had been secluded away in the Himalayas with the yogis during the Dark Ages and kept alive. And then he was given the task of resurrecting Kriya and teaching it. And one of his students was Yukteswar, who was the teacher of Yogananda, who, by reading Yogananda, I'm sure most of you have, it's a funny story about how he kept thinking he had to go to the Himalayas to find God, and he ended up finding his teacher with a few miles from his home. And there's that whole wonderful description of when Yukteswar thumped Yogananda on his heart, on his chest, and the cosmic conscious experience happened for Yogananda. And then he was given that very easy task of going to America to teach it. Yogananda was once asked, "What is the special purpose of your mission on earth?" And he said, "To awaken people to their need for self-realization through meditation and fellowship with other truth-seeking souls." So Norm was around 18 when he actually came to the Mount Washington to be with Yogananda. And pretty much on his arrival, he was taught the Hong Sau technique by Reverend Bernard, who actually came to Sunburst in the 70s and stayed with us for a while. And after a few weeks, Norm I can't remember what he was doing, but this nun came down and said, Yogananda lived on the 3rd floor at Mount Washington in an apartment, and found Norm, and she said, "Master would like to see you tonight," which was a real honor for a disciple to be able to actually be close to Yogananda, because he was so busy, always traveling and stuff. So he went up there, knocked on the door, and Yogananda was sitting in a chair and had this lamp next to him. And Yogananda said, "Big boy." He always called him Big Boy because Norm was 6'4" and towered over Yogananda, who was fairly short. He said, "Sit down. I want to meditate with you." He said, "You did learn Hong Sau, right?" And Norm said, "Yes, sir, I did." So they sit down, and Yogananda, says, "Find your third eye and control your breath." And he turns the light out. And Norm said that he started to go really deep, and what happened was he started to see this light, this pinprick of light, seemingly at the end of a tunnel as he was meditating. And as he focused on that light, it got brighter and started getting larger as it was coming towards him. And right when it was on this critical course to hit Norm, Yogananda turned the light on. And he said, "Now that you've seen the light, you must penetrate the light." And that was kind of Norm's mission, was to penetrate that light. which he did a few years later. But each of us has our own unique journey in trying to become self-realized. Just briefly, in my own travels and discoveries and journey, I was probably 1961, 62, around in there. I was still in high school. I began having these really vivid dreams where I was either in a car or I was in a house or walking out of a building, and I was blinded by this brilliant white light, and it would wake me up. It happened a number of times, and I was like, whoa. I was living on the East Coast. I was born on the East Coast, pretty much an East Coaster. And soon after I had those dreams, they probably happened, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 times over the course of a few months. I started finding this desire to go to California, and I didn't know why. Except for Disneyland had opened, and I had always followed the Mickey Mouse Club. And my parents always took my brother and I to church on Sundays. And early on, for the most part, he and I would fight with one another or pinch each other or squirm or whatever. And finally, they had to separate us. And it was okay. I didn't really hate it, but I didn't really enjoy it. But soon after having those experiences, church became different for me because I started to feel a connection with Jesus for some reason. I just didn't understand what was going on, but I just felt this really strong connection with Jesus. And I actually felt motivated to, before I went to sleep each night, to just get down on my knees and pray to Jesus. And I'm 100% sure that he was the one that got me through high school, because I didn't study. I mean, it's just I didn't know what I wanted to do in life, but due to the draft that was happening then, the Vietnam War, all the men were getting drafted. I had to go to college if I wanted to stay out of the draft, and so I set my sights on getting into a college. Had no idea what I wanted to study or what I wanted to do, but I'm pretty confident that that's how I got through high school, because I sure didn't work very hard at it. And I ended up actually going to California after I graduated college, and stayed out here for a number of months, and felt like I was home. I really did. Didn't want to go back. But I had run out of money, and I still had an apartment that I was paying rent on in New Jersey, and so I went back, got drafted, and ended up being in the Army for 2 years. And when I came out, I ended up in New York City, living in New York City, and I would go to a Saturday morning yoga class every week. And I had changed my diet, became a vegetarian, and felt a need to find some kind of like-minded people, like a community. And there were a lot of communities. David mentioned it yesterday. There were a lot of communities happening at that time, in early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And I ended up leaving. There was actually a book written. There was no internet, obviously, and cell phones or nothing. But there was a book written about all the active communities that were happening in the United States. And it was a pretty thick book. It was probably about that thick. And it described the communities and, where they're located. And so I thought, well, I'll just start exploring some communities, because earlier I had been meditating. I had learned a basic meditation technique in yoga, and I was meditating one afternoon in my apartment, and I had this vision of a community of people out celebrating together, and kind of in this beautiful valley. And I was like, wow, that's what I need. I need like-minded people that I can be with. So off I went, and I make a long story short, I ended up finding Sunburst and began my intense search of self-realization with Sunburst. So we're going to enter into our silent meditation period, which is about 15 minutes. And one of the things that we teach when we teach Kriya is about the third eye, the Christ center, it's been called. It's really the spiritual center of the body. And it's down from the crown, in from the temples, and in from the bridge of the nose. And it's pituitary center. And that is where, when you focus your vision like 8 or 10 inches out in front, you're looking with your third eye, and actually what you're seeing is your inner dimensional tunnel, we call it, with the chakras and the life force flowing up and down from the Creator, from the crown of the head to the base of the spine. And it's out here is where one begins to see the inner world. Because we teach in Kriya that it's best if you can keep your eyelids slightly open. And I can see, if I look down, I can see my hand moving. But if I raise my vision a little bit, I'm looking out here. And this is really the difference between self-discovery and self-realization, is how we hold our eyes. And if we focus our eyes upwards a little bit and not really pay attention to the light that's shining in, we can begin to see, if we're really concentrating, it's kind of like when you're in a darkened theater where there's a play that's going to happen and the curtain's closed, and all of a sudden the house lights just slightly start coming on, and we might see like a mist, like a violet mist cloud that starts to happen. And as we keep concentrating, we begin to see a tunnel forming. And if we're really blessed, we start seeing the little light at the end of that tunnel. And that light is what we call the great spiritual sun. It's the first creation of our Creator. Let there be light. And it's the light through which all images that the divine Creator projects flow through that light and get projected into creation. And it's been written by those souls that have had a life after death experience, and it's been written by other souls and teachers, that when we gaze on this light, we feel no judgment. We feel its brilliance penetrating our being, and we feel attracted to it. And we feel nothing but love and understanding and peace. And that's the light that Yogananda told Norm to penetrate. Because on the other side is cosmic consciousness. So as we sit in our silent period, if it's comfortable, leave a little bit of light shining under your eyelids. It also helps with your concentration because it forms like a horizon line, and you know that you need to keep your vision above that line. And just feel the divine presence in and around us. And I'll lead us in a few ohms. Yogananda wrote, "Once the mind is interiorized and withdrawn from its identification with the world and the body, the inner light comes into clear and steady focus. Om fills the brain, and its vibration moves our spines, bursting our hearts feeling and flowing out of our body. As we go deeper into meditation, our consciousness expands with the sound of Om. With continued meditation practice and right living, our expanded consciousness will merge with the divine." Last week we sang a song that was actually lines from a talk that Norm gave that was put to music, but I just wanted to read a few lines from that talk, from that song. "Think not lightly that God is calling you because of your own heart's desire. How much do you really want him? People come and go like leaves from the trees. Listen and seek while you have the opportunity." What I'd like to do now is, there's a poem that is my favorite Yogananda poem. And at the end of each stanza, there's the words God, God, God. And I'd like you all to join me when I get to there, and we'll say God, God, God together. And I'll read the stanza, and then we'll say it together. "From the depths of my slumber, as I ascend the spiral staircase of wakefulness, I will whisper, God, God, God. Thou art the food, and when I break my fast of nightly separation from thee, I will taste thee and mentally say, God, God, God. No matter where I go, the spotlight of my mind will ever keep turning on thee, and in the battle din of activity, my silent war cry will be, God, God, God. When boisterous storms of trial shriek, and when worries howl at me, I will drown their noises loudly chanting, God, God, God. When my mind weaves dreams and threads of memories, on that magic cloth will I emboss, God, God, God. Every night in the time of deepest sleep, when my peace dreams and calls, joy, 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 my joy comes singing evermore, God, God, God. In waking, eating, working, dreaming, sleeping, serving, meditating, chanting, divinely loving, my soul will constantly hum, unheard by any, God, God, God. Amen.